So good evening, everyone. I think we can start now. So welcome. And the alumni cells of IIM A, B, L, and XLRI would like to welcome you to the Inter B School speaker session on how to crack case competitions. Apart from case comps being just a highlighting point in your CV, case comps is exactly where you work in teams, apply what you've learned in your MBA classrooms, uh, virtual rooms in our case, and in a nutshell, case comps are what give you an edge over the others. But how exactly do you do that? How exactly do you Let us welcome the first speaker for today, Mr. Manavdeep Singh. He graduated from IIM L in 2021. He has an impressive track record of winning 18 national case competitions. Moreover, he is the national winner of ACE 20 and was among the top 6 who won the UN Hult Prize in 2020 in the Asia Pacific region. He has been declared as the Forbes-D2C Competitive Leader and is the founder of his own venture, Lakshya. He is currently working as a program manager at Amazon. A very warm welcome to you, sir. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking out your time on a weekend. I hope I am audible, guys. Can anyone just confirm?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, okay, great. So that's a question, a basic question we ask every day in our corporate life. So I thought let's start with this. So good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Also consider this as a very informal session. I know the introductions were too formal, but we should keep it informal in order to have a two-way conversation and a better learning. We both are just 1 year elder to you in terms of passing out, not in terms of age. So you can consider us as friends and we can take this forward. But before I begin, I think Saumya would like to start this discussion with you. So guys, Saumya, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'll just start sharing my screen
Sure.
and then. Navya, could you help me with it? I think you'll have to enable it.
Yes, Saumya, you should have the rights now.
Okay. Tell me when it's visible.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Yeah, so before starting off, I'd also like to just give a brief introduction about myself. So I just graduated from IIM Calcutta a few months back, and as Manavdeep mentioned, like we're not that older to you. I interned during the summers with Hindustan Unilever, and currently I'm working with Reckitt Benckiser as a management trainee. An out and out FMCG person, I've had a fair, I have had my fair share of failures and successes in terms of case competitions. I've been trying them out since my very first year at IIM Calcutta. And I think, with time, I learned how to kind of, crack these competitions. So I was the national winner for J&J Quest. And post that, I was the national winner and globally top 5 at RB Global Challenge or Reckitt Global Challenge. So yeah, hopefully I think hopefully we are able to help you or guide you or clear some doubts through this workshop. So yeah, I think before starting off, I just wanted to give a brief on what different types of categories we have within case competitions. So this is not an exhaustive list. I think, with time and as more and more companies try to venture into this side of engaging with the students, they can come up with different challenges. But mostly they're classified into one is a product innovation challenge, wherein the company asks you to basically come up with an entirely new product or a new service maybe, and you have to ideate it from scratch. So I think what you require is more of a company research, knowing their brands and everything. Secondly, you have the case studies, which is, I think, probably the most common format for case competitions. You're faced with real life business problems. They can be ethical questions, or I think anything, within real life also you have different categorizations. Either it can be a supply chain problem, an HR problem, or a marketing problem. So, just an example for product innovation, mostly Reckitt Global Challenge, ITC Interrobang, Mondelez Challenge, all these challenges are usually product innovation, whereas case studies is done by, I think, HUL Lime, Flipkart Wired Challenge. Then third, you have the product launch kind of a challenges, wherein I think you need to, the product is already known, you don't have to ideate on that, but you need to focus on how to bring it to market. So here your go-to-market strategies, your understanding the customer bit, and focusing more on the promotions part becomes important. And lastly, you have the simulation or the quiz-based case competitions, which is either can consist of your daily quizzes, or you have those phased business simulations. So I think ABG Stratos is a good example for this. I think I would want Manavdeep to take over now. He'll take you through his unique strategy, and then I can take over again.
Sure. Thanks, Saumya. So, guys, I think Saumya summed up really well that please don't look at us in terms of the total number of successes we had. I would say these successes came up because of a lot of failures, and I like to highlight these things, especially when I take these kinds of sessions, that instead of winning 18 case competitions, which everyone talks about, I lost 14 too. So I participated in 32 case comps over the 2 years, but I lost 14 case competitions. Out of that, 9 were the straight losses. So you can say I didn't even clear the round one. And that was my first year, summed up with 9 losses altogether. I started from, I guess, Invictus was the first competition by TAS, and I started losing from that, and it took me 7-8 months to win my first case comp. And yes, I was really frustrated. I couldn't crack what's required in order to get to at least the second round, because that would have given me much motivation. So here is what I present, an 8-step mantra to success. It's completely not Googled. It's what me and my teammates have come up with after going through all those challenges. And yes, to highlight the fact that I participated with the same team overall, I guess at least 25 plus case comps out of those 32. So me and my team had fair share of losses and wins together. And we prepared this for you just to ensure that you get the best out of it. So I'll not be covering just the basics, which are reading the case and then going through all the objectives of the case. I'll be covering what is required in each step. And I have just divided it to 8 steps. You can take screenshots, you can do whatever you want. It's completely okay. Okay, so starting with the first, and of course, the first step is a case reading, but I'll not cover the basics as I mentioned. So I'll bring down the expectations to you and all those things which I think you should focus on, which other teams would not do that, and so that you are able to differentiate yourself from the others. So number one is define your own clear objectives. See, every case will have objectives, and there will be a set of question and answers at the end of each case. But what you need to do is you should read the case like multiple times. We had this habit of reading it at least 5 times, and then define your own objectives, that what do you think are the objectives of that case, and that's very important. Second is to create a customer persona. So what's a customer persona? Where you define all the characteristics of your customer in terms of what's their age, what's their gender, income category, geographies, all you can think of. Try to create for which kind of customer are you solving. There can be one major customer, some minor, or there can be 2-3 major customers. Try to define that clearly just after reading your case. Then list down all the stakeholders around the case. What are the stakeholders? Let's say it's a e-com player for which you are solving a case. So your stakeholders can be the people who create those apps for you. It can be a third-party creator, or you might have your own app developers in your team. And then your stakeholders are distributors, sellers, all the people in your supply chain, even the government can be a stakeholders. List down everything after reading the case, and do not forget to create alternate objectives. This is something which helped me crack those case competitions, which is going through the case and thinking that what can be, so just to give you an example, let's say you understood that there is a one pain point for which you are solving your case. After reading that, try to analyze that if you solve that problem, are you creating some other problem because of a solution which you created? And that would lead to another pain point which you can identify and then solve it for. So when you solve for one, try to identify another which comes up along with it, and that becomes your alternate objectives. And this is one of the great strategies, because the jury would be very happy when they see that you are able to think one step ahead of other teams. And yes, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 teams come up in every case comp. So you will have to differentiate yourself. You just can't solve each and every question which is given in the case. So that's number one. Also, guys, you can ignore the memes which I put up in my slides. These are just to keep you awake. So step number two is research. Now, don't go for survey forms. I am fed up of this and I keep on telling this. See, the survey forms are just emotional kind of research which you do. It's like sending to a friend asking, please birthday, and you just get the responses to that. Please remember, the survey forms are just to show off in your case study. It doesn't add value to your solution. Show off can be done in multiple ways. You don't need to waste your time in getting Google Forms filled. If you really want to use that primary research, what you should do is you should talk to people. You can go and meet them. You can call them. You can do whatever around your areas in your neighborhood, or if you are in campus, you can talk to your friends. And it should be kind of an FGD where you try to understand multiple things instead of just asking people to answer a certain set of problems in a certain way, which is a survey form. And you can see that I have written secondary research before the primary. This is something I love to do, because most of the cases which we get are unknown to us. For example, if you are solving for Amazon Ace had a case on garden, the material which you can use for your gardens, and all these things. So if you are not well versed with those kinds of topics, you cannot just ask the customers about it. You should firstly go for secondary research. If I have to tell you about the components of secondary research, just read the government reports on some particular industry, analyze the competitors, try to see what are the different products in that industry. And then once you have a high level idea about the firm as well as its competitors, then create your primary research questions and all those data around it. And then you can finally go back to the secondary research to come up with data points which you will show off in your slides. So it's a simple process: secondary, primary, and then secondary again. That would help you understand the case in a better way. Okay, the third part, the third step is brainstorming. People take this thing as something very light, just wasting your time and sitting with your friends and sipping a cup of coffee. That's not brainstorming. And this is where your team game comes into picture. I would say after brainstorming and before brainstorming, the team doesn't matter much. According to me, again, that can be subjective. But this is a point where the diversity and all those thought points come into picture. Have multiple ideas. If I have to tell you, the right thing which we did was we used to have a whiteboard in the campus. I'm sorry, you are not in campus. So we had a whiteboard. We used to sit together, write down all the pointers. It can be right or wrong. Just write it down. Write any stupid thought which comes to your mind. Try to ask others what they think, and also remember to have some pre-work done before you sit for brainstorming, so that the biases are not created while you are sitting with your team. And litmus testing comes up after those multiple ideas have been pointed out or written on a piece of paper. And then you start eliminating some very, very stupid ideas when all 4 or 5 or 6 of you say that this idea would not work at all. So it's like getting to 50 ideas, cutting off 20 ideas, and then still going on with 30 more because you still think that these will work. So that's your brainstorming. Number 4 is idea generation. See, idea generation is the most important part for any case competition. It is where you create your unique selling points. An idea can do wonders. I can take an example later on after this session or in the Q&A, where I'll discuss how making a very crap kind of a presentation with very bad colors, nothing was organized, but our idea was such a great idea that we got selected to the national finals just because the jury members liked our idea. So sometimes an idea can do wonders for you. So what should be your expectation here is people are so confused whether their idea should be highly innovative or they should take an iterative approach. So if I have to just define these two things, see, if you are creating a highly innovative solution, you should take into consideration that the company might take more time to implement it. It might also require more use of resources, all the resources you can think of, material, investment, everything. And you will have to think that, is the problem a short-term problem or a long-term problem? So if it's a very short-term problem which other competitors might have solved already, you cannot ask the company to adopt a highly innovative tech-related solution which might take an year or two to implement. Till then, your company would be doomed. So then go for an iterative approach where you know that a particular problem can be solved within a matter of hours, days, or 1 or 2 months. And iteration is something you build upon what is currently existing in a form. So let's say a company is already selling a product, but you realize that there is a problem in the way it is being marketed. So you will not create a new product, you will create a new marketing approach for that. And that's an iteration to the existing portfolio of the company. Scalability, guys. For scalability, I just want to tell you that before you approach a campus round, always go with a mindset that yes, I will clear the campus and reach the nationals, because the game changes once you reach the national finals. So it's very simple that the ideas which you present in the campus rounds have to be scalable in nature, and you present a 360-degree model of your ideas in the national finals of the same competition. So if your ideas are unscalable, and when you go on to create those operational models, financial models, or marketing models for that, you will realize that the scalability came as a bottleneck for you in order to stop you from winning the nationals. So ensure that these are scalable. I only know two kinds of scalability for a case comp. Number one is geographically scalable. So if you are launching in a pilot phase, let's say in a metro city in India, you should have a plan to scale it to at least 10 cities or 20 metro cities later on. And number two is a time-based scalability. That is, with time, your product or service or innovation can go into different geographies and across the boundaries, not just in India or around India. And practicality is important. Here I have a very good example. Let's say you create a time machine. There is no company which will reject your idea. You will win every case comp and millions of dollars. But if it's not practical, you will lose out all the case comps. So innovation is important until and unless you can actually create it in your real life. So if you have a time machine idea, go for it. Irrespective of the case, you will win all the case comps. This don't take this seriously, please. Okay, so step 5 is representation, guys. See, this is where you can actually make or break your presentation or a document which you are representing. Why? Because some people have a habit of using the data in the raw form. There are two ways to present your data. Number one is to use the appendix carefully. Generally, most of the case competitions allow you to create an appendix where you can present your data in the raw form. But in your main slide or a main document which you are presenting to the judges, do not have raw data. Always have an analysis of that data and quote the sources in the footnotes or in the appendix later on. So data becomes important if you know how to analyze it. Just pasting and copying the data from different files and sources doesn't help you much. So try to have clarity around your data. Make flow charts as much as possible. Use graphics to make it easy for any person to understand, because you have to realize that generally in the national rounds, the juries are with diverse backgrounds. So you need to ensure that everyone is able to understand your idea. And flowcharts are the best way to present your ideas to the judges. Models, what are models? Models are very simple things. For example, if you are launching a new product, so you will create an operational model specifying how that product flows into the market, right from the seller, the procurement of raw material, to manufacturing it, to taking it to the distribution channel, and then finally to retailers and customers. So that's an operational model of your idea. A marketing model can have multiple components, from the communication strategies to talking about what is your ad campaign, how you are using social media for it. So models are kind of strategies which you build around your product or service, and flowcharts, data, and models really add a lot of value. So instead of writing a lot of text, you should ideally use up your space in these things, and that would add much value to your presentation. Okay, this is something which is very close to my heart, a hypothesis testing. You can ignore the meme. So guys, what's a hypothesis? Here is when you relate your primary survey. I will not talk about survey, your primary discussions with your customers with your solution. So what you can do is, and this is what we did as a team. So we identify the pain points by talking to the customers in the, let's say, day 1 or day 2 when the case was released. And when our solutions were finalized, we went back to the same people telling them that we have solved your problem in these particular ways. What do you think about that? So it's like taking the proof of concept, using the same set of people again to test your ideas, whether they like it or not. And that would add another value. And you can add a half pager or half slider mentioning about customer testimonials, that how the customers felt when you released this kind of an idea to them. So it's like a beta testing or a pilot testing, but not at a even at a small scale. It's just like launching it to the customers with whom you could converse in the beginning. And then let's say out of the 5 ideas, 3 or 4 were very much acceptable, but 1 or 2 ideas did not get approved by most of the people. So then you can create a plan B or C for your ideas. And this is the time when you can, let's say you have to submit a case comp on Sunday. So this is something you should ideally do on a Friday or the beginning of your Saturday, so that you still have time left to plan for your plan B or C. So please ensure that you go for hypothesis testing. And if you are good in quants, you could understand this meme well. Okay, going to the step number 7, which is implementation plan. Please ensure that your solutions are implementable. One of the easiest tests is to try to relate your the company's business with your product or your service. For example, if you are solving for HUL, you shouldn't bring about saying that HUL should start manufacturing aeroplanes or cars. It should have to be somewhere around the existing portfolio of the company, or if not exactly the existing portfolio, around it, which can help the company merge its current businesses with your ideas. That's very important for implementation phase. And then, as I discussed, you should have the operations, marketing, financial, and the most important, business impact. So there are 2 kinds of business impacts, impact to the customers and impact to the company. Look at the company's culture. For example, if I talk about Amazon is highly customer centric firm. So they would want you to present the customer impact first and then the business impact later. Similarly, you can look at different firms. How is their culture? What is their vision or mission statement of these companies? And basis that, you can create a business impact where you can talk about, let's say, the effect or impact on revenues, profits, market size, market share, or even if there are losses, you can tell the firm that these are the losses, but we would be eventually, let's say, subsiding these losses in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So your business impact should talk about all the things that come along with your ideas. And then the last step is the final check. Don't miss this part. Mention all the data sources, correct all the grammatical errors. You can use Grammarly or any other source if you have. Please ensure that if you are committing some spelling errors or grammatical errors, it just gives a very bad impression about your commitment to that case. So don't do that ever. Get your documents reviewed if you can. Again, that's not necessary, but it's always good to have multiple viewpoints about your solutions. You can use your seniors, friends, or even alums if you have contacts, and ensure that the doc is formatted well. Don't use extreme amount of colors. I think Saumya would cover all these things later on, but just to tell you, the colors or heavily designed slides don't add any value. If you think that it does, You can try doing that and you will realize that you are not able to win, because I tried it and I couldn't crack just by designing the slides well. So guys, these are all the steps I wanted to cover. Over to you, Saumya.
Thank you, Manavdeep. I think this was pretty holistic in nature. I'll start sharing again. Yeah. Tell me when you guys can see it.
Yes, Saumya, it's visible.
Yeah. So I think Manavdeep pretty much covered the part about how you go about ideating and what are the steps you require, what are the unique things that you require in order to win a case competition. But also one more I think essential aspect is, especially from the point of view of your first step towards case competitions, because the first thing that you send to the firm or the company is your presentation, and you get judged on the basis of that. Again, as Manavdeep mentioned, obviously the idea is the king, because I think even I have tried this. Like, I made a really beautiful presentation, but I think my idea was pretty crap, so I got rejected straight up. But yeah, with a good idea and a good presentation, I think your chances of cracking a case competition, at least going to the campus round, become pretty high. Because sometimes what happens is, when you do have a good idea, but as Manavdeep talked about, how you need to show the your flow charts and your models in your PPT, so so that it is easy for understand for any kind of jury member. It's not compulsory that your presentation would be reviewed by people who have done MBA, or who have certain level of experience. Not true. Anybody can view your presentation, and anybody can be on the other side to judge what you're sending them. So I think, along with having a good idea, it's also equally important that you make it quite readable. So I'll start. Mostly all the FMCG companies usually go for a product ideation or a product launch kind of cases. So I think this is more towards that, but mostly like 90% of it can be applied to case studies also. So first thing is problem statement and analysis. And this is with a lot of, after doing a lot of case competitions, this is the crux that I found, that sometimes what we try to do is, when we start ideating a product, or when we start ideating a solution, we first skip to the solution and then try to build a problem around it. We often skip the part where we should be analyzing the problem to understand how scalable the problem is, and how it is impacting the majority. Because what happens is, if you think of a solution, for example, if you're doing RB Global Challenge, or if you're doing Mondelez, you can think of a product and you think that, wow, this is a, I mean, bang on idea, and it completely relates to the brand, it is relevant to the company and everything. However, when you work backwards, you realize that the solution, or basically the insight that the product is catering to, it's not that huge. It is quite narrow in nature. The target group is not that huge. And I think that's where, as Manavdeep mentioned, when you go from the campus round to the national round, the feasibility and the scalability matters. For my case as well, when we were doing Reckitt Global Challenge for nationals, I think the picture was pretty different, because we were just thinking about India and how the Indian consumer behaves and everything. However, when we went to the global round, it is then when we realized that, probably we should start thinking universally as well. Because what problems may affect Indians may not affect people who are probably living in a developed nation. So I think the problem should not root from the solution, and in fact it should be vice versa. It should be addressable. Again, your problem statement, especially whatever problem statement, either you are taking it from the case, after reading the case, or you are ideating the problem yourself and then bringing a solution to it. It should be very crisp. If somebody asks you, you need to be able to define your problem in 7-8 words. That's it. Because only then will your idea be like, you should always think from the perspective that, will you be able to explain this problem to a 5-year-old child or not? And if the answer is no, I think you need to go back and rework. So it should be addressable, crisp, and obviously understandable for people. The next part is making your product or whatever solution come alive. So this is the part where I think you need to be a little more skilled, and that you learn with time. You don't need to worry about that, but you need to show the jury or show your audience that you're not just thinking the problem or thinking the solution in your head. You actually have like demonstrated, you can come up with product mockups, design the product. You don't need to learn all those fancy software today. I think there are a lot of websites that give you free mockups if you have the design in mind, or if you have basically what kind of product you want to make in mind. So you need to even think to the detail of what kind of packaging would you be using, because sometimes even that becomes important. Even in my Reckitt Global Challenge, the product that we had suggested, everything was great, but at the end of the day, people in my global the international finale did ask me that whether the packaging is sustainable or not. And I think we had thought about it, but we didn't give it that much importance. But you never know what's important for the judges, so you need to think it through completely. Try to bring in the technology behind whatever product or solution you are suggesting. Don't leave loose ends here, because especially in your very first rounds, people will go behind the feasibility of your product or your solution. So then you need to have proper backing, like data or scientific resources, to give them that this technology works, or whatever you're thinking, it works. And finally, definitely you need to have applications. So when probably you're thinking from just a country perspective, the applications can be limited. But when you expand it to a global level, or even when you expand it from a city level to a country level, the applications increase. And it's quite important to highlight them again, to show the merit of your idea. That's all. The next part is defining your target cohorts. I think this is one mistake I used to commit back in my first year. Whenever I used to do a marketing case competition, I was more interested in making, fancy names like something like, designer Divya or something like that. Not really caring about what I'm putting inside it, but just, making these fancy terms that I had seen people doing. All that is important, but when you actually don't understand the cohort, it's of no point. And I think that's where Manavdeep made an excellent point. These surveys and all, they're good for giving data on your case competition, but trust me, you can always like fake those surveys. Nobody cares about that data, because it really doesn't give you that much value or that much insight. Instead, go for focused GDs, talk to people, really talk to people. If you have an hour-long conversation with just one person also, now that will give you a lot of insight into how a consumer thinks. And then you can have those qualitative interviews with 3-4 people from different backgrounds or from different strata. So I think that works much more than doing a mindless survey and just asking your friend ke bhai bhar de types. So defining your cohort becomes important, and you don't need to have like these 5 cohorts. Okay, we are catering to this and that. Even if you have one cohort that makes a lot of sense. For us in RB Global Challenge earlier, we started off with like 3-4 cohorts, similar fancy names and everything. But in the end, like towards the end, we just had one cohort which we called protector people, like protector something, because we were ideating for a Dettol product. So I think that's when we realized that probably not, like you don't need to have those jargons. It's more about understanding the customer base truly. The next part is your pricing and market scoping. So I think Manavdeep covered this part, that you need to have the idea needs to be feasible again to show the merit, but it like having the pricing bit and proper calculations for market sizing is important. Pricing, because it gives the audience a view about what are the competitor pricing and how have you arrived at that pricing, why that pricing makes sense. If you're doing premium pricing, or if you're doing like competitive pricing, you need to have a logic for that. Your product category or whatever your solution, it must belong to that category. And then whatever the competitors are doing, you need to have an answer for why you're doing this kind of pricing. And similarly, market scoping or market sizing gives the audience again an idea about the feasibility, the scalability, whether this is a narrow idea or not, or whether this can cater to a large public. The next part is the launch strategy. And I think this works for both product launch and product ideation cases, even for case studies. When you're asked to do a launch, don't just focus on what will happen during that 1 month of the launch. Focus on what you'll be doing pre-launch, during the launch, and post-launch. And this is something that we also kind of got the insight from interacting with mentors from the company itself, because they always do their launches in these 3 phases, and the pre-launch consists more about the initial hygiene check, talking to the customers and doing some sort of kind of like a mystery element that something is coming up. And these days, for example, the recent example that I can think of is Durex. When they were going to launch these invisible condoms, it was a new product and they created a lot of buzz on the social media that something is coming up and all these things. So that is again a part of your pre-launch, because when you launch the product, you obviously, your product becomes the king, but you can create a kind of a mystery during your pre-launch, or talk to important stakeholders or the key opinion leaders who would later help driving the use of the product during the launch stage, because you will have to catch hold of these innovators or these early adopters in order to drive growth for your product. And this is something, this I think idea you should have in your mind, because when you're going into a case competition, you need to know what are the next steps. Like, although it sometimes seems fancy when you give a timeline that, okay, 5 years later, this will happen, that will happen. But if you're very comprehensive with what you have written in that timeline, and how you're planning to scale it up in the future, I think the judges really appreciate that. And finally, the financial analysis. I won't go that deep into this because this is quite subjective in nature. You need to just understand that what is important for that company is, it can either be what is the payback period if you're investing in a new technology, how long before we can start earning the profit, or it can be what is the gross margin of the launch, or anything like that. So I think when you do the financial analysis, you don't need to show the entire whatever P&L that you've done and the components, the cost, or everything in your main slider. You can always add that in your appendix. But I think what is more important is you identify what are the KPIs here. So even during the launch part, like especially during the post-launch part and for the financial numbers, what is more important is which KPIs are you taking to understand whether your product launch was successful or not. And I think that should be your talking point in your presentation rather than just loading them with data. So I think if more or less, all these things you cover in the presentation, the entire presentation in general becomes more holistic in nature. And always remember that your presentation should have a readability in terms of how it's flowing. So there should be no breaks. Everything should be logical in nature. And that is where your review part becomes important, that, you have been working on this idea for a really long time. So you think that every part makes sense and you know the nitty-gritties behind how you've put these slides together. However, when you show it to a third person, that's when you actually, realize whether this presentation is readable or not. And that's why you should always get reviewed to understand whether your presentation has a storyboarding. Like you need to just tell it as a story, and it should have a good flow when you are saying it to the judges, so that even the judges uh, are interested. Otherwise, they would also just simply get bored and not be very willing to listen to your idea. So yeah, I think that's about the presentation bit. These are just some friendly and nothing hard and fast here, just some tips I wanted to give before we break for question and answers. So I think one is to have an unbiased mentor. This is something that I had for almost all my case competitions, at least the ones I won. uh, to have somebody, either last year's winner, I contacted a few winners, and I just kind of really bugged them that please help, please help, please help. कभी तो वो मान ही जाते हैं. So just have an unbiased mentor, so that because they've had experience with the competition, and sometimes your batchmates are also participating in the same competition, people may not have the time or the bandwidth to listen to your idea, or to sit deeply with you on what you're doing and what you're not. So have a mentor apart from your teammates, and I think that really helps. You can show them your progress at each stage, and these mentors can either be provided to you by the company, once maybe you advance after the campus round, or even you can have somebody, some senior, some alum as a mentor, because it's always good to have a third person perspective of a person who knows your journey, apart from getting it reviewed from your friends, your alums, when your friends and your seniors, when, like, just before the competition. But having a mentor throughout always helps. Secondly, practice your script. I mean, a lot of times what happens is that you're done with the PPT and you've prepared everything, but you don't time it. Or even if you time it, even if your team manages to fit into that 20-minute gap, if you don't have, at least I'm not saying that you need to have like a word by word script, but at least you should have a what you want to say, because sometimes when you are in that case competition pressure, when you are facing the jury, either you can just some people just keep on speaking and do not realize the time, or some people get nervous and cut short and forget points that they wanted to say. So it's always good to have some kind of pointers, and you need to keep practicing it. Like, practice is king here, because that's how you kind of get a grasp on the timing and how each person is speaking. And let me tell you, case competitions are really, really strict on time, because like they literally have a buzzer going on, and if you just cross that buzzer, they kind of start making faces. So yeah, it's better not to cross that time. The third one is to choose your teammates wisely. By wisely, I don't mean that you need to have a strategy that one person should be finance, one person should be marketing. No, I always participated with my friends. But within friends also, I think it's very important to make a distinction between who will work and who will not. Very simple. Like, your friends, and that this XYZ can free ride and this person cannot. So just have a just don't dive into it. Yeah, I want to do case competitions and I want to like participate left and right. Just have, like, even if you're participating in a few case competitions, but when you're going into them, you should have a team that you can rely upon, like you can bank upon them. So yeah. No, the fourth point is definitely take care of your font size, visuals, and the readability, and all the other small hygiene checks that even Manavdeep mentioned, like the grammatical errors or quoting the sources. That is extremely important, because even a small mistake, it kind of does give off a wrong impression to the jury. Fifth is take mentorship sessions seriously. This is especially for when you clear the campus round. You usually, have certain sessions with the company before the nationals. So a lot of people tend to skip those sessions or not take them seriously. But in my experience, I've realized that sometimes they do drop good hints. And even for Reckitt, they had dropped hints. I wish I had taken them as seriously. But yeah, do take mentorship sessions very seriously, because they're speaking from the company perspective. I mean, of course, it's more like you're getting a visibility into what they really want, because before campus round, you just know that one pager that they've sent, and that's all. But when you're having those sessions, you can always like understand what they really require of you. And lastly, I think have fun. uh you know when you're entering a case competition, don't obviously have this in the back of your mind that you want to win and everything, but just don't keep fixating on that you have to win, because otherwise your aim would not be to produce a good idea, but it would be to, I think you would end up committing the mistakes like making a extremely beautiful presentation or things like that. I think it's more important to focus on the idea and to understand what your consumer, or maybe what the problem really demands of you. And yeah, I think that's it. So um, that's it from my end. I'm like, we're open for questions. I think there are some chats.
We have some questions in the chat. Maybe we can take those up. So let's start with Manogna. She asked that how would you suggest we go about very broad and vague problem statements?
Do you want to take this up, Manavdeep?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a nice question. I haven't seen much cases with vague statements, to be honest, but if they are, let's say a case has so many things which you need to address, you can do two things here. Number one would be break the problems into multiple problems. Of course, this is what we do in our daily life. If we are confused about what to do first or what to do the last, try to do the same thing. Break that case into multiple problems and rate those or rank those problems in the order of the highest to least priority. What this will help you is, number one, this will help you save time on taking too much time on the problem set which you think is not highly influential or important. And number two, it will also help you divert your solution towards one particular side, because we are assuming that the case is vague. Number two, what you can do is, it's a very, very unique practice which we did. Go to Twitter accounts of the CEOs or CXOs of a particular company, see what they are tweeting, and try to see that are they tweeting something which is similar to what your case is asking for. 99% of the times you will get at least one tweet and 5 to 6 news articles or blogs on the similar thing, where a person would be quoted saying that this is a problem we are trying to solve, and we are looking for the next 2 years as a great time for our company to solve this, and all those things. What this will help you is, again, try to break down your problems and prioritize what are the most important parts of them. And also you will understand the culture of the firm well. So let's say you are not able to connect to an alum, directly listening it from the CXOs would definitely help you in understanding that what the company is looking for. And this way did for Amazon Ace, this way did for Colgate, and so many case competitions, and it really helped us a lot. If you have any, yeah.
I think no, I think you pretty much summed it up. I'm seeing in the chat box, mostly the questions are around how do we fit things into a 2-slider or a 1-slider executive summary. There's one question about the white space thing. Okay, so I think it's pretty understandable in nature. What happens is that sometimes for the campus round, because whoever's evaluating your presentation then don't have the time to read through like a 7-8 slider, so that's why they request a 1 or a 2 slider from you. So in that cases, any which way, if you have ideated something good, white space, having white space would, in fact, you would be like, yeah, no, I want to fill this up, because you anyway won't have space. The executive slide may usually what happens is that you try to fit in whatever you're trying to do. So I think the white space thing, it in a 1-2 slider, that problem won't happen for you, because anyway we all tend to make like lengthy slides. So when we're trying to compress, you usually don't have white space problems. And when it comes to presenting in a campus round or even in a national round, I think they definitely focus on low text and more images. So in that case, the white space is required. Like you need to have a readable presentation, something that the jury would, it will be pleasing to look at. So when it comes to putting things in a 1-2 slider, I think I'll just go back to that slide only. It's not like that you can skip any one of these steps. Everything needs to be there, and that is why it is called an executive summary. However, you need to be very smart enough to focus on what is more important. So for example, when you're doing a problem statement thing, you don't need to put in an entire analysis of how how impactful the problem is and everything like that. I think that's where you need to have a crisp problem statement and just a few numbers about how big the problem is. That, for example, you can show a small graph that this is affecting so many people, or you can give a percentage here. But at the same time, like, again, even your executive summary should be pretty readable. It's not like you need to stuff everything there. But apart from being readable, you need to be very smart about it, because everything here needs to be there, but you need to understand that what is more important to show. So if you're talking about making the product or the solution come alive, maybe show maybe just, you don't need to show the entire packaging, maybe just write the name of the packaging, that this is the kind of packaging you will be using, this much percentage plastic and everything. Just show a small mock-up of the product you've made, or just a small image about that, and list down applications. So I think what becomes more important in these 1-2 sliders is your presentation skills. So how you are able to make those whatever points that you wanted to expand brief, and you've all made CVs. So I think it's like everybody would know how to lessen the points, but also create impact. So just put it in bullets or something like that. Even with target cohorts, don't need to add images, just put like 3 small boxes or 2 small boxes on showing what the target cohort is, and just try to maintain like a storyboard there also. Don't just put it in like text. I think just have a storyboard there. But yeah, at the same time, even in the financial analysis, just put whatever calculations you've done in the appendix part, but put the KPIs on the executive summary, and so on and so forth. Manavdeep, if you want to add anything.
Yeah. So I think Saumya covered everything. I'll show you how I prepare one slider. I think so whatever
Yeah.
Saumya said gets covered in my one slider.
I'll stop
Let me
sharing. Okay.
share. Sure. Okay. Saumya, can you just confirm?
Yeah, I can see
So
it.
guys, this is a one slider which we prepared for L'Oreal last year. Just to talk about all the points which Saumya mentioned. See, the beginning, the two lines indicate everything that's a part and parcel of our whole project, where we discuss in one liner, we define our solution at the beginning, and then we start with the storytelling. See, storytelling is important, even if it's one slider, 10 sliders, or 100 slides. We discussed about the problem, and we again defined our problem into two segments and solving for each of them. Now the question is, how do you fit in so much material? See, you can use color coding. You should use arrows where a jury member should easily understand that, okay, this is the flow of slide and not the other way around. It's important to tell them how they should read about the given problem or the solution set, and see what are the components which we cover here are very simple. We discuss the problem here, we introduce our solution, we discuss the impact of our solution, and then we define our solution into two parts, which is product related and process related. So here we have shown the mock-ups of product, like Saumya said, and we define in detail what are the different components on an app which you will be able to see. And see, these are not highly well designed. These are just to showcase that what are the different components of an app that would be. And this is a 4-directional 360-degree model which talks about process flow. So product flow, process flow, pain points, and then talking about your solution, because it is unique. It is the first time it has been launched. So you will have to at least mention some bullet points. Do not write paragraphs here. Mention the bullet points. Try to create as many boxes as you can, so that it's easy to understand what are the various areas. And this is, I have just compressed it down. I had prepared it on, I guess, on a A3 sheet, so it didn't look as compressed as it is looking right now to you. But yes, create very high quality material so that even if I zoom in, I am able to read everything well. So there is no problem related to pixels of your slide. That's also important, because there can be some texts which are very small or impossible to read, but it should be at least readable if it's presented in, let's say, an A3 sheet or even a sheet of higher size.
And I think the way you've done it here, like in the overall projected impact, every line has a number. So
right.
Don't just like completely overload the slide with data, but in each line, if you can add some data point to back up whatever claim you're making, I think that just creates a lot of impact. I think I have a question here which says that how much, how do you research about a company and to what level should we know about them? So, yeah, it completely depends on what kind of, competition you're looking at on your problem statement. So, for example, if they have given you a very comprehensive case study in which everything that you need to find within the case study, maybe not so much, just the basic hygiene check. But especially when you're doing a product ideation challenge. And as Manavdeep also mentioned, that if you're doing something for HUL, you can't go on saying, okay, I want to invent an airplane or something like that. So you need to know what the company brands are, what the company stands for. So maybe your idea can sit with one of those brands, but if it's not in the company ideology, or if it doesn't sit well with the company values, it won't make a lot of sense. So not just on an India level, if it's a multinational company, look at the kind of initiatives they're taking on a global level and see if whatever you are ideating, will it be able to fit into their overall scheme of things or not. And in terms of, if you want to do some kind of a financial analysis, or maybe some mathematical analysis, all that reports you can find. But when it comes to company research, I think the best is to read their own website in detail, like just understand what they're trying to do. Maybe just look for some news articles as to how the company thinks, how it performs, what has been their recent performance and all that. So yeah, I think that is the level you require.
Yes. So there's another question by David, I guess, which says that what is the level of marketing or financial models that are expected? Great question. And I really want to tell you that you don't need to be a chartered accountant to create a financial model. Uh, it's very easy to present the basic information. For example, I guess most of you have experience of a B school now. So very basic things which you should cover is at a very high level, you should talk about the revenues, the projected revenues of your idea, and then talk about the costs, divide them into simply fixed costs and variable costs, and then try to project the different costs related to all the services and products which you are launching, and just create the profit estimation of it. You don't need to have a P by E ratio. You don't have to discuss about what if the company starts an IPO and all those things which are not required until and unless you are actually solving a case com for a PE firm that would want you to solve and deep dive a lot in the financials. But if you're solving it for an FMCG firm or an e-com player, you just need to project and estimate, and you can also use a range. So you don't have to come up and to a strictly to a one pointer saying that 18% profit or 21%. You can always say the profit ranges from 17 to 25%. And ranges are better because even the company has no idea, because it's your own idea and you should be well versed with how this idea impacts the firm. Now, the important thing is not your financial model. The important thing is your assumption. So work more on assumptions, that what are the different things you have assumed around your product. Because if you are doing a wrong market sizing and then you are just multiplying your market size with the price of the product and getting a revenue figure, that would just go haywire, because your market size is an assumption which you should ideally create with a very I would say strict set of data. And market size is something which is generally taught in a B school while you are preparing for consulting firms. So have a better guesstimation skills, I would say. And then it's very easy to come to the financials once you know about all the things around the financials. Similarly, for all the other kinds of models like marketing models or operational models, you don't need to have an exact idea. It should just be a forecast or an estimate. And remember, even right now, like I'm working at Amazon, we have a daily forecasting about the volume for the next day. It's not correct. Like it's not 100% correct that if we have projected a 6 million orders to be there tomorrow, it's never correct that we will always get the exact number which we forecasted. So even companies have a wrong forecast. So you can easily play with those ranges there. So, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, one thing I would just like to add, as you just mentioned that, you cannot just go on multiplying the market size with the price of your product. You need to have, an estimation for what will be your worst case scenario, the moderate case scenario, and the best case scenario, because that gives your, audience or your jury the view that you've thought in all the aspects. So when it's market size, you need to think of one adoption percentage, that itne market mein se this much percentage of the market would probably end up adopting my product in the first year. And then uska bhi, like for that also you need to take a worst case scenario, a normal case scenario, and the best case scenario, so that you can have visibility in terms of, even in the worst case, if you're making a profit, that is something that you can show to the company. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Okay, how do you validate data? And considering there's a lot of misinformation. Okay, I'm not saying that everything is right on the internet, and maybe you can make a mistake and find a report and use that report to have your calculation and everything. First of all, just try to confirm from 2-3 reports, and always quote the sources. Okay, always just quote the sources, and always mention whatever assumptions you've taken. So if you read somewhere that 30% of the people in India have a refrigerator at home, just a very random example I'm taking, so just quote the source and say that this is the assumption I'm taking. It can be like upar niche, it can vary, but at the same time you need to, whenever somebody asks you, it's not about whether your number would be exact or whether it would give the right view or not. It's more about when the jury is looking at it, it should get a fair idea of what the what the final number would be. And if they cross question you, you should always have a response that this is the logic I used, this is where I found out this data particularly, and yeah, just try to keep the sources legible. Just don't pick up from random websites. Definitely, if you have some reports or some kind of journals that come out every year on these things, I think that would be better. Okay, there's a question about consulting case challenge. I have not really done consulting challenges. I was like really into FMCG. Manavdeep, if you have done those.
Sure. Okay, let me read the question. How does a strategy change for consulting case challenge? Okay. So Himanshu, there's a basic difference. And if you have ever solved a B plan, that's something which is very similar to a consulting case challenge. Because generally in a consulting case, if you are asked to come up with a new product or a new idea, as you have mentioned, which is not exactly as a marketing case would have, uh, you need to show everything as if you are a business in yourself, an independent entity, and try to think from that perspective. If I have to give you an example, uh, generally in a consulting case, the cases are made in a way that there is a particular client for which you are solving something, and then you will have to maybe understand about the client's business first, uh, see what are the problems going around in that business. Sometimes the problems are also not mentioned. It's just told that their revenues are declining or they are facing a huge backlash from the customers, all those problems. So firstly, you will have to go about and analyze the industry, because you will have to understand how a consulting firm works. There is a lot of research that is being conducted by different people in a consulting firm, and you will have to present your research in a holistic way, as compared to some other case comp where the research part only takes up 1 or 2 sliders at max. In a consulting case competition, your research component should be very highly detailed, from where you draw your solutions, and then the implementation plan should be highly detailed. So consulting case comp will not focus too much on ideas. It will focus too much on how to improve that particular client's business, and as a result you will have to show a lot of practical things. For example, you can even go to the detailing of headcount planning for that company, where you mention that these are the total number of employees at these different levels that a company requires in order to save the amount of costs which they are incurring right now. Like, so think about running a whole business in itself rather than running a particular category or a product, and that would enable you to solve a consulting case competition. So think that that client is you yourself. So how would you solve all the problems in your company and then present it for a consulting case? If you have any other question, you can ask a counter question to this.
I think somebody has asked, can we put hyperlinks in that one slider? So, of course, first just look into the guidelines, because mostly they do mention about, whether you can put hyperlinks or not, or whether even you can put appendix slides or not. Just check on that. And if there's nothing mentioned, I would suggest that try avoiding that. However, if you've done a very comprehensive calculation which is extremely important and you've derived numbers from there and put it in your PPT, I would say that you can put like maybe an Excel sheet ka link there, but try to keep it to the minimum. Like probably don't do it so much. Guys, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask.
Maybe we can take one last question if anyone wants to ask.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Saket, go ahead.
Hi. So my question is, many competitions put limit on the number of slides you include in the presentation. So when do you decide you should have an particular dedicated slide for appendix, or how do you decide which sources to put, like just below the information when you are providing, or put a particular slide for it apart?
Completely on you. If there is a limit, definitely try to put it in the footer, the sources and everything. And I think when they do specify, they clearly specify that excluding the appendix, you need to have these many slides or not. So I think the direction for that is pretty clear. And honestly, all this really just happens till the campus round. After the campus round, it's a lot of, you are given your own liberty, because they also understand that you need to present your idea in your own way. So when it's before the campus round, I think the guidelines are given. However, if you're confused, try to be on the safer side. Agar unhone bola hai that you can't do more than 10 slides, try to include appendix in that only. Okay, just be on the safe side.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Is there any other question?
Yeah, so we I think have 2 more questions.
Okay.
We can answer them.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll just answer the last one. It's a very personal choice you have to make. Honestly, for me, I always wanted to get into the FMCG industry. So for me, once I lost the PPO in HUL, I realized that case competitions were my only way to get a PPI in an FMCG firm. So for me, I honestly just participated in FMCG competitions. However, and I did not even have the time, like even in participating those competitions, like I used to just sleep for 3-4 hours a day, because they are pretty hectic and you require a lot of research. Like the return on investment on a lot of these competitions is pretty low, especially if you don't get selected, because you make like a holistic thing and then you kind of have to submit and wait for your fate. So I think that's a personal choice. If you want to expand your horizon and uh, try to understand more business cases, I think just go for as many as you can, whatever is there in your bandwidth. But honestly, my aim was pretty clear. I wanted a PPI. So the competitions that really didn't offer a PPI, I never used to participate in them. So yeah, that's my honest answer.
I have a completely opposite viewpoint to this, guys. So, since I had a PPO and I was bashed for participating by my own friends, uh, I participated in 32. I was just calculating. It's an average of 18 days per new case competition, which I did. Uh, in my case, it was just a passion. I just found a hobby in doing case competitions. So I just applied for all the case competitions and could somehow participate in 60 to 70% of those. But I had this very bad habit of just seeing a new notification and registering my same set of people for every case competition. Sometimes they used to leave the group with so much frustration that why do you just register us without telling? And I used to say, let me do it. I just need a team to register, and that's why you are it. So yeah, it's up to you. The moment you start enjoying the process, you will fall in love in case comps. I'm
That's
still
true.
solving case comps right now in the company, because I started Lakshya. So I'm solving the case competitions and guiding people how they can think about it. It's just my passion and I'm just doing it. So there's another question which I saw was quickly answering it. We are already exceeding time. How do you okay, this was done. How do you do research on internet? It's completely random. Just Googling the keywords. So starting from the pain point. So I always wanted to tell a story in the case competition. So I used to keep the keyword same, which is the problem statement, and put all the keywords around it. For example, solution to solve X, problems related to X, competitors related to X. So just keeping that X constant and searching different keywords around it. And then I have this habit of doing the most boring thing, which is reading the whole research papers. There are a lot of research papers with so many ideas which no one has implemented till now. And people used to ask me, how do you produce so many ideas? I'm just telling you right here, half of them were taken from research papers which no one knows about, because no one reads those research papers. Go about reading them, and you will also see how they have come up to a solution. So I used to create a story around that in 2017, while I was facing this problem, I went about solving this, and now in 2020 I have a solution. And that problem was actually someone else's problem in the research
Yeah,
paper which I
I
could
pretty
solve.
much did the same thing.
So you have to be a storyteller, and that would enable you to get through all these case comps. Please read the boring stuff. I am telling you, you will get so many things out of those. no source of research paper. It's just Google. Someone has just texted me.
You can just go on Google Scholar if you want. Yeah, honestly, more than Google Scholar, your library has access to a lot of these papers, because on Google Scholar, sometimes you're not able to access the papers. So just like go to your library wala, whatever portal is there for journals and all, there you can find. Just put in a keyword and then you'll be able to find papers.
So are we done?
Yeah, I think if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your alumni cell, and I'm sure Saumya and Manavdeep will be able to help answer those questions. And yeah, thank you so much for taking out time for this session and a very detailed presentation, I would say. I think we can see how we won multiple case competitions. But yes, the session has been very insightful, and I'm sure all the participants thoroughly enjoyed this. And thank you once again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
You
so
can
much.
just reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yeah, like on LinkedIn or anywhere, honestly.